All right, this is going to hit like a slow storm. No fluff, no escape hatches, just truth layered over truth. You don't ruin your life in one moment. There's no single day where everything collapses. No dramatic scene, no clear breaking point. It happens quietly. In small decisions, repeated so often they stop feeling like decisions. You wake up. You already know what matters. There's something you've been avoiding, something you've been postponing, something you keep telling yourself you'll get to. And every morning you make the same trade, comfort over effort, ease over growth, now over later, and it feels harmless. Because it's small, it's just one delay, one distraction, one skipped effort. But it doesn't stay small because you don't do it once. You do it again and again and again until it becomes you. You become the person who delays, the person who avoids, the person who almost starts but never fully commits. And from the outside, nothing looks wrong. You're still functioning. You go through your day. You talk to people. You show up where you're expected. You look normal, but inside there's a quiet awareness. You know you're not doing what you should be doing. You know you're capable of more. You know you're wasting time. And that knowing, it doesn't motivate you. It drains you. Because every time you ignore it, you chip away at something important. Your self-trust, that ability to rely on yourself, that inner voice that says, if I decide something, I'll do it. You lose it slowly. At first, you don't notice. You still believe in yourself. You still think, I'll get it together soon. But then you break your word again. You say you'll start tomorrow, and you don't. You say you'll be consistent, and you aren't. You say you'll try harder, and you fall back into the same pattern. And something changes, not outside, inside. You stop taking your own promises seriously. You start doubting yourself automatically. You hesitate before committing to anything, because deep down you don't trust yourself to follow through. And once that happens, everything becomes harder. Discipline feels impossible. Consistency feels exhausting. Even small efforts feel heavy, not because they are, but because you've trained yourself to not show up. And now your mind expects it. It expects you to quit. It expects you to delay. It expects you to choose the easier option. So it pushes you in that direction, not aggressively. Subtly, it suggests a break. It suggests waiting. It suggests doing something easier first. And you listen, because you always have. And this is where the real damage happens. Not in failure, but in identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who can push through. You stop seeing yourself as someone who follows through. You start labeling yourself differently. I'm just not disciplined. I'm not consistent. I've always been like this. And those labels, they lock you in. Because once you believe that's who you are, you stop fighting it. You accept it. You build your life around it. You lower your standards. You aim for things that don't require much effort. You avoid situations that test you. You stay in a zone where you don't have to confront your limits, and it feels safe. But it's not, because while you're staying safe, you're also staying the same. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, and nothing changes. Not because you don't want it to, but because your actions are perfectly aligned with staying where you are. And deep down, that starts to hurt. Not loudly, not in a way you can easily explain, but it's there, in quiet moments, when you're alone, when things slow down, when distractions fade. You feel it, that gap, between who you are and who you know you could be. And it's uncomfortable, because it's not a mystery. You know exactly what's causing it. Your choices, your habits, your patterns. And that realization, it creates tension. A constant internal friction. You want to change, but you don't. You know what to do, but you don't do it. And that contradiction, it eats at you, because it makes you feel powerless, like you're stuck in your own behavior, like you're watching yourself make the wrong choices and not stopping it. And over time, that turns into something darker. Frustration, not at the world, at yourself. Because you know better, you've seen glimpses of what you can do. Moments where you were focused, moments where you showed discipline, moments where you actually followed through. And those moments, they prove something. That you're not incapable, you're inconsistent. And inconsistency is brutal, because it gives you hope and then takes it away. It shows you what's possible and then reminds you that you're not living it. So you start comparing, not just with others, with yourself. The version of you that showed up once, the version of you that felt sharp, that felt driven, that felt in control. And now that version feels distant, like it belonged to someone else. And that realization, it stings, because it forces you to confront something simple. You didn't lose it, you stopped choosing it, again and again and again, until it faded. And now you're left with this version of you, the one that avoids, the one that delays, the one that settles, and you hate it, but not enough to change it, because change is uncomfortable. It requires effort, consistency, discipline, all the things you've been avoiding. So you stay in this loop, wanting more but choosing less, dreaming bigger but acting smaller. And the longer you stay here, the more normal it feels. That's the most dangerous part, not the struggle, the normalization of it. You get used to underperforming, you get used to delaying, you get used to not showing up fully. Until one day, it doesn't even bother you anymore, you just accept it. This is who I am. And that's when it becomes permanent, because once you accept it, you stop trying to change it. You stop questioning it, you stop fighting it. And your life becomes a reflection of that, not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, consistent way. You stay average, you stay comfortable, you stay exactly where you are, and years pass, not in chaos, in stability, a stable life that never reaches what it could have been. And then one day you look back, and you see it clearly. Not one big mistake, thousands of small ones. Moments where you could have acted and didn't, moments where you could have pushed and didn't, moments where you could have changed and chose not to. And that realization, it's heavy. Because by then, you can't go back. You can't redo those days. You can't reclaim that time. All you have is the outcome, the result of everything you chose or avoided. And the worst part, it wasn't out of your control. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't the world working against you. It was you, your decisions, your habits, your willingness or lack of it. And that truth, it's hard to accept, because it removes all excuses. There's no one to blame. No situation to point at, just you and what you did repeatedly. But here's the part most people don't understand. This isn't about guilt. This isn't about beating yourself up, because that doesn't change anything. You've already done that. You've already felt bad. You've already been frustrated. And it didn't fix it, because the problem isn't how you feel, it's what you do. And that's where the shift has to happen. Not in your thoughts, not in your intentions. In your actions, small ones, consistent ones, uncomfortable ones. The moments where you would normally avoid, and you don't. The moments where you would normally delay, and you act. The moments where you would normally choose easy, and you choose effort. That's where everything changes, not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually. Because every time you show up, you rebuild something. Self-trust, that belief that you can rely on yourself. That when you say you'll do something, you actually will. And that changes everything. Because once you trust yourself, discipline becomes easier. Consistency becomes natural. Effort becomes normal. Not because it's easy, but because you expect it from yourself. And expectations shape behavior. So if you expect yourself to show up, you will. Not perfectly, but enough. And enough over time becomes progress. Real progress, not imagined. Not planned, executed. And that's what builds a different life. Not big decisions, not sudden changes. Small actions repeated consistently. The same way you built your current life, but in the opposite direction. So if there's one thing to understand, it's this. You didn't end up here by accident, and you won't leave by accident either. It's going to take the same thing that got you here. Repetition, except this time you choose differently. Again, and again, and again. Until one day you look at yourself and recognize the person you've become. Not the one you imagined, the one you built through what you did when it mattered. And that's the only thing that ever counts. And even after realizing all this, you'll still feel the urge to go back. Back to what's easy, back to what's familiar, back to the version of you that doesn't demand much. Because change isn't just effort, it's loss. You're not just building something new, you're letting something old die. And that's uncomfortable. That old version of you, the one who avoided, delayed, stayed comfortable, it's familiar. It knows how to survive your current life. It knows how to keep things stable. So when you try to change it, resists. Not loudly, subtly, it tells you not today. You've done enough, take it easy. And it sounds reasonable, because it's your voice. But it's not the version of you that moves forward. It's the one that keeps you where you are. And if you're not careful, you'll listen to it again. Just like you always have. That's the real fight. Not against the world. Against that internal pull towards comfort, towards ease, towards staying the same. And here's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't feel wrong. It feels justified. You'll convince yourself you deserve a break. That you've had a long day. That starting tomorrow is fine. And just like that, you slip back into the pattern. Not completely, just enough. Enough to slow down progress. Enough to lose momentum. Enough to make stopping easier next time. And this is how people relapse. Not in one big decision, but in small permissions. Small allowances. Small moments where they let the old version take control again. And every time that happens, it gets stronger. Not because it's powerful, but because you keep feeding it. You keep choosing it, so it becomes default again. And the new version of you, the one trying to grow, starts to feel unnatural. Forced, like something you have to push yourself into. And eventually, if you keep giving in, you stop pushing. You fall back, you return to what you know. And then you tell yourself, I tried. But you didn't. You just didn't persist long enough. Because real change is boring. It's repetitive. It's uncomfortable. It's not exciting. It doesn't give you instant results. It asks you to show up when you don't feel like it. Again, and again, and again. And most people quit there. Not because they can't do it, but because it doesn't feel rewarding yet. So they go back to what does. Quick dopamine, easy wins, instant comfort. And they lose everything that takes time to build. So if you're serious about changing, understand this. You're going to feel like going back. A lot. You're going to question yourself, doubt your progress, miss the comfort you left behind. That's part of it, that's the cost. Because you're not just changing your actions, you're changing your identity. An identity doesn't shift easily. It fights back. But here's the difference now. You see it, you recognize that voice, that pull, that pattern, and once you see it, you have a choice. Not a big one, a small one in the moment. Do you listen to it or not? Do you go back or do you stay? And those moments, they decide everything. Not once, repeatedly. Because consistency isn't built in big decisions. It's built in resisting small ones, the ones that seem harmless, the ones that feel justified, the ones that pull you back without you noticing. That's where people lose, and that's where you win. Not by being perfect, but by being aware. By catching yourself before you slip too far. By choosing effort even when comfort is available. And over time, that becomes your new default. Not instantly, but gradually. The same way you became who you are now, through repetition. Except this time you're doing it consciously. You're not drifting, you're choosing. And that's the difference between staying stuck and actually changing. So the next time you feel that pull, that urge to go back, don't overthink it. Don't negotiate with it. Just recognize it for what it is. The old version of you trying to survive. And then decide if you're going to keep feeding it, or finally let it fade.